She was a mother. She was strong, but no one could prepare her for what was about to happen. Hannah walked through the fields, sun beating down, children at her side, laughter in the air. Life was simple. Life was hard, but it was hers. Then they came, shadows moving fast, horses thundering, men shouting, chains rattling. Hannah screamed, children screamed, the world tilted. They grabbed her, pulled her from the soil she loved, her children ripped from her arms. Her heart shattered, but they didn't care. A heavy chain was thrown around her neck, cold iron biting into her skin. She stumbled, fell, got up, fell again. The men laughed. Her freedom was gone. Her journey had begun. The Coffle stretched for miles, a line of chained bodies, mothers, fathers, children. Hannah fell in line. No words, only pain, only the weight of iron. Her eyes burned, her feet blistered, her spirit screamed silently. She remembered her children, her home, her dreams, and she promised somehow she would survive. Somehow she would see them again. The sun rose, the sun set, they marched, day after endless day. Rivers crossed, mud clinging to her legs, hunger gnawing, thirst burning. Every step a battle, every breath a war. She whispered prayers, she whispered curses. She saw others fall, weak, broken, silent forever. She refused to fall. She refused to be silent. Hannah's hands were raw, her body screamed, but her eyes burned with fire. Fire no chain could snuff, fire no man could break. Somewhere ahead, hope flickered, a tiny flame in the darkness. She gripped the chain tighter, she lifted her head. The march was long, the pain unending, but Hannah would not surrender. The chain around her neck was heavy, but the burden on her heart was heavier. Dawn broke, the march resumed. Hannah's feet sank into the dirt, blisters screaming, blood mixing with dust. Behind her, mothers cried, children whimpered, fathers gritted their teeth. The overseers shouted, whips cracked, commands barked. Step, stop, fall, rise, march, march, march. Hannah stumbled, the chain tugged her forward. Her throat ached from screaming for mercy. No one answered. Her children were gone, her home was gone, her freedom stolen. She walked beside strangers, women she had never met. Some whispered prayers, some muttered curses, some cried silently. A mother ahead had fallen, a whip cracked across her back. Hannah turned her face away, she could not look. Food was scraps, water was scarce. Rivers were crossed barefoot, rocks cutting into raw skin. The sun scorched, the wind tore, the nights offered no rest. Sleep was a luxury, pain was constant. Still, Hannah whispered to herself, I will not break, I will see them again, I will survive. The chain clinked with every step, a reminder of captivity, a reminder of the fight she had to endure. Each mile stretched into an eternity. Her muscles screamed, her spirit burned. She learned the language of survival, silence, caution, endurance. They marched through villages. People stared, some hid, some watched in horror. No one could intervene, no one could save them. At night, under the stars, Hannah sat on cold ground. Her fingers traced the chain. She dreamed of home, of warmth, of her children's faces. Hope flickered, a tiny flame against the darkness of despair. Every step forward was agony. Every step forward was rebellion. Hannah refused to be crushed. She refused to vanish without a trace. If Hannah's fight leaves you breathless, smash that like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to follow the next of her harrowing journey. Pain has a sound, and Hannah heard it in every step, every chain, every gasp. The march dragged on, sun blazing, sweat stinging her eyes, feet raw, legs trembling, body screaming with every movement. She fell, the chain dragged her forward, she rose again. Food was gone, water even scarcer, hunger clawed at her stomach. A child ahead cried, the sound tore at her chest. She wanted to reach out, she wanted to hold them, but she could not. The overseers were cruel, whips cracking, shouts piercing the air. Step faster, don't fall behind. Pain was the only language they spoke. Hannah watched others collapse. Some never rose again, silent bodies left in the dirt. Each death a reminder, each breath a defiance. She leaned on strangers, women old and young, carrying their own chains. Together they whispered prayers, shared scraps, gave each other courage. Humanity in the midst of hell. Night brought no relief, cold biting, insects crawling. Her body ached, her mind wandered. She remembered laughter at home. Memories became both a blessing and a curse. Yet Hannah endured. She lifted her head with every sunrise. Every step was a rebellion, every breath a promise to survive. Her hands gripped the chain tighter, her spirit stronger. They crossed rivers, mud sucking at her legs, rocks cutting her feet. She learned to move silently, to avoid the lash, to endure in silence. Hannah's eyes burned with determination. The journey was unending, the chain unyielding, but she refused to break. She refused to vanish. Somewhere ahead, hope waited, a chance, a glimmer. She clung to it, even as her body begged for rest, even as despair whispered in her ear. Even in chains, even in pain, humans find each other. The march continued, dirt in their mouths, blisters on their feet. Hannah fell into rhythm with the others, step by step, chain by chain. She noticed a young woman beside her, eyes wide, trembling. Hannah offered water, a whisper of comfort. The woman nodded, gratitude and silence. Old men limped behind, their bodies weak, but their stories alive. They shared memories, told Hannah of their homes, of children, of freedom lost. Her heart ached with every tale. In the darkness they huddled together at night, shared warmth, shared hope, shared courage. Hannah learned their names, their fears, their little dreams that refused to die. The overseers sneered at their bonds. Stop talking, stop dreaming. Whips cracked through the air, pain echoed in the night. But the whispers continued, quiet defiance, silent rebellion. A small child clung to Hannah, tear-streaked face. She held the child close, whispering promises she feared she couldn't keep. Still, she whispered them, because hope, even small, kept them alive. Rivers crossed, hills climbed, sun beating down, mud sucking their shoes, chains dragging, bodies breaking. Yet they moved forward, together, holding on to the faintest flicker of humanity. Hannah realized something. Even in hell they had each other. Even in chains they could protect one another. Even in despair they could whisper hope. The march was far from over. Pain had not lessened, but the bonds she forged became armor, strength in numbers, a chain of resilience stronger than the iron around their necks. Hannah's eyes burned with determination, not just to survive, but to protect those who could not protect themselves. Every step forward was for them, for the memory of her children, for life. If you feel the strength of Hannah's bonds, hit like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to follow the next of her struggle and resilience. Hunger is cruel. Pain is relentless, and the Coffle showed no mercy. The sun burned their skin. The wind cut like knives. Hannah's feet were raw, her legs bruised, her body screaming. Food was almost gone, water even scarcer. Stomachs rumbled, weakness spread through the line like wildfire. Children cried, mothers wept, fathers whispered prayers they didn't believe. Illness struck quietly, fever, chills, exhaustion. Some fell behind, some never rose again. Hannah felt the sickness creep into her own body, but she could not stop, could not fall, could not vanish. The overseers grew crueler, whips cracked, men shouted, chains rattled like thunder. One mother collapsed, her cries silenced with a strike. Hannah's heart pounded, fear and rage burned together. She saw a little boy clutching his mother, his eyes wide with terror. Hannah knelt, whispered softly, and promised they would survive, even if she had to carry them herself. Rivers became treacherous, mud sucked at their legs, hills loomed, heat weighed them down. Every step was agony, every breath a struggle. Yet Hannah endured. Pain became part of her rhythm. Chains became a reminder. Chains meant survival. Chains meant she was still alive. She held on to hope like a lifeline, remembered her children, remembered her home, remembered her promise. Even as the world tried to crush her, she whispered, "I will survive." Her fellow captives clung to each other, shared scraps of food, shared water, shared whispers of encouragement. Even in hell, humans could be human. But the march was far from over. The worst was still ahead. And Hannah's strength, tested to its limits, would be needed more than ever. Pain could break her body, but it could never touch her spirit. Hannah's feet were raw. Her back ached, her body begged for rest. Chains dug into her neck, every step was a battle, every breath was a war. But inside, a fire burned, a fire she refused to let die. She thought of her children, of home, of the life stolen from her. That fire became her strength, her reason to endure. She whispered to herself, "I will not fall. I will survive. I will see them again." The words were soft, but they echoed in her heart like thunder. The others around her suffered too. Some were silent, some were broken. Hannah became a beacon, a whisper of hope, a hand to hold, a voice to comfort, a presence that said, "We can survive this together." Night brought silence. Stars above, cold beneath. She traced the chain with her fingers, felt the weight of iron, but also the weight of her resolve. Memories haunted her, laughter from the past, faces she could not forget. Pain tried to suffocate her spirit, but the fire inside flared brighter. She learned the rhythm of endurance. Step, breathe, step, survive, step, hope. Chains no longer just bound her body, they anchored her determination. Every drop of sweat, every step of blood, every pang of hunger was a reminder she was alive, alive to resist, alive to protect, alive to fight for what the world had tried to take. Hannah's eyes burned with defiance, not just to survive, but to endure with dignity, not just to walk, but to march forward as proof that hope cannot be chained. And somewhere ahead, the road twisted. Danger lurked. Whispers of death floated in the dust. But Hannah's spirit, her fire, was unbreakable. If Hannah's unyielding courage inspires you, hit like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to follow the next of her epic struggle. The chain weighed heavy, but the danger ahead weighed heavier. Hannah marched, step after endless step. The landscape changed. Hills grew steeper. Rivers swelled with rain. The sun scorched their backs. The wind tore at their clothes. The overseer's cruelty intensified. Whips cracked faster. Commands barked louder. No pause, no mercy, no rest. Some captives faltered. Some fell. Their cries were swallowed by the wind. Hannah's heart ached, but she could not stop. Every step forward was for them, for herself, for the memory of her children. The air grew thick with tension. Predators prowled nearby. Soldiers lurked in shadows. One wrong step, one scream, and death would strike. Hannah's body screamed, blisters, bruises, exhaustion. Her hands gripped the chain tighter. Her eyes scanned every movement, every shadow, every sound. She found strength in the others, silent nods, quick gestures, shared endurance. Even in chains, they became a single force of survival. Rivers became raging torrents. Mud swallowed feet whole. The marchers slipped, slid, and clawed forward. Each step a small victory, each breath a triumph over despair. Hannah thought of home, of warmth, of the faces she had lost. Her fire flared, a spark of defiance against the relentless darkness. The march was no longer just survival, it was a test, a fight against fate itself. Every step, every chain, every heartbeat was rebellion. Danger lurked around every corner. Whispers of death floated in the dust. But Hannah marched on, relentless, unbroken, determined. If Hannah's bravery in the face of unimaginable danger moves you, hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe to follow the next where the tension reaches its breaking point. Chains cannot bind the heart, but this moment could break everything. The march had lasted weeks. Exhaustion carved deep lines on every face. Bodies faltered, eyes glazed. The weak were left behind. Hannah's feet were shredded, her back raw, her spirit tested like never before. The overseers shouted, whips cracked, a boy stumbled. One strike, another, pain echoed through the coffle. Hannah's heart pounded, rage and fear mingled. A river loomed ahead, flooded from recent rains. Crossing it would mean life or death. The overseers pushed, "Move, move, move!" Some screamed, some fought, some slipped into the current. Hannah's hands gripped the chain, her mind raced. I will not lose anyone else. I will survive. She dragged a collapsing woman forward. She shielded a child from the whipping. The danger pressed closer. Soldiers patrolled the banks. One misstep and the Coffle would be slaughtered. Hannah shouted, screamed, refused to be silent. Her defiance sparked courage in others. A mother helped another. A man lifted a fallen friend. Together they crossed the river, step by grueling step. Chains rattling, water swirling, pain unrelenting. When they reached the other side, Hannah collapsed. Her body refused to obey, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. She had survived this round of hell. She had protected those she could and survived to fight another day. The overseers cursed, threats flew, But Hannah stood tall, exhausted but unbroken. Somehow the fire inside her refused to die. Chains could weigh her down, pain could batter her body, but nothing could crush her resolve. Survival came at a price, and the cost was almost unbearable. The march ended, or at least the worst of it. Hannah's body ached from head to toe. Blisters and bruises covered her skin. Her hands were raw from gripping the chain, her spirit battered but not broken. She looked around. Some had survived, some had vanished into the dust. Children clung to mothers, mothers clung to children. Silent tears fell. Relief mingled with sorrow. The overseers were gone, their laughter replaced by whispers. Hannah's legs trembled as she knelt on the ground. She touched the earth she had been forced to walk on for weeks. It was freedom, but it felt hollow. Memories of the march haunted her. Every scream, every lash, every fall etched into her mind. Her heart ached for the ones she could not save. Her spirit mourned the losses, even as it celebrated the survival. Yet there was hope, a spark in the darkness. She had endured, she had survived when so many had not. She could still fight, she could still protect, she could still love. Hannah stood, lifting her head to the sky. Chains were gone, but the scars remained. Her eyes burned with quiet defiance. She had walked hell, she had carried hope, and she had survived. Somewhere ahead, life awaited, healing awaited. She did not know what the future held, but she knew one thing: she would never surrender. If Hannah's survival inspires you, hit like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to witness the final of her extraordinary journey. Some chains can break bones, some chains can crush bodies, but no chain can ever touch the fire inside a mother's heart. Hannah stood at the edge of the field, the wind tugging at her torn clothes. The iron that had bound her neck for 800 kilometers was gone. Her body was battered, bruised, blistered, and aching from head to toe. Every step, every lash, every cruel shout still echoed in her mind. And yet, through all the suffering, her spirit was unbroken. It burned brighter than the sun overhead, brighter than the pain that had tried to snuff it out. She closed her eyes and let herself remember. The endless march, the dust rising in waves around the chained line of captives, the mothers who fell beside her, their bodies giving in to exhaustion and cruelty, the children, small and fragile, clinging to mothers who were slipping into despair, the rivers that clawed at their legs, the hills that tore at their muscles, the hunger that gnawed relentlessly at their insides. And yet, somehow, she had survived. She knelt and pressed her hands into the soil, feeling the cold, damp earth beneath her fingers. It was freedom, hard-won, blood-stained, a freedom paid for in steps that had bled and tears that had fallen in silence. Every ounce of her pain had become a victory. Every tear had been a step toward resilience. Her eyes scanned the horizon, and she saw the others who had survived the horrors with her. They were weak, scarred, shaken to their core, but they were alive, and in that survival, Hannah found hope. Chains had bound them, cruelty had broken many, but courage could never be stolen. Courage had carried her, step after grueling step. It had carried them all. She remembered the whispers in the night as they huddled together for warmth, the quiet prayers exchanged among mothers, fathers, and children, the small acts of kindness, sharing a scrap of food, lending a hand, murmuring hope that had kept them alive when all else seemed lost. Hannah understood in that quiet that survival was never just about walking. It was about fighting to protect those who could not protect themselves. It was refusing to vanish, refusing to surrender, refusing to allow the cruelty of the world to define the measure of a life. Night fell, and Hannah lit a small fire. The flames danced and reflected in her eyes, mirroring the unyielding fire within her. She thought of her home, of laughter she might never hear again, of children she might never hold in her arms. Yet even as grief gnawed at her, she felt something new, pride, fierce and unshakable. She had endured the unimaginable. She had faced cruelty, death, hunger, and despair, and she had survived. Chains could bind the body, pain could crush bones, fear could paralyze the mind, but courage could not be bound. Hannah had become more than a survivor. She had become a symbol of hope, a beacon for anyone who had ever been beaten down, enslaved, or told that they could not endure. Her story was a warning to cruelty and a promise to those who suffered. You can endure, you can survive, you can rise. Hannah's eyes lifted to the stars above, and for the first time in months, she allowed herself to feel peace. She had survived the unimaginable. She had carried herself and others through pain that would have broken most. Her body bore the scars, yes, but her heart, her spirit, her courage, those would remain unbroken forever. If Hannah's incredible journey of resilience and courage inspires you, hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe to uncover more stories of survival, hope, and the unbreakable human spirit. Share her story so the world never forgets that even the heaviest chains cannot contain the fire of the human heart.